Parents, when was the moment you saw your child's spirit break? I never wanted to see my son Nathan cry, but what my husband did to him that Christmas was unforgivable. Nathan had always been different from other kids. All they wanted video, games, and toys. My 12-year-old spent months begging for a very specific violin. He'd discovered classical music through YouTube and became obsessed. He'd play air violin in his room for hours, pretending to perform concerts. He even printed sheet music and studied it, even though he couldn't read notes yet. Line cost $800. My husband Tom thought it was ridiculous. He'll play it for a week, then give up like every other hobby, he'd say. But Nathan was determined. He started doing extra chores, saving his lunch money by eating smaller portions. Even offered to skip his birthday party if we put that money toward the violin. Seeing his dedication, I picked up extra nursing shifts. 3 months before Christmas, I had enough saved. I bought the violin and hid it in my friend's garage. Nathan kept dropping hints about wanting it, and I played dumb, loving how excited he was getting. The week before Christmas, Tom lost $2,000 gambling. He found my violin receipt while searching for spare cash. Instead of admitting his problem, he took the violin from my friend's house and returned it without telling me. I only found out Christmas morning. Nathan came downstairs vibrating with excitement. He'd even dressed up in his church clothes, ready to take photos with his new violin. When he opened his present and found a $30 plastic recorder instead, his face crumpled. But I've been good," he whispered, tears welling up. "I did everything right." Tom just shrugged. "Violins are for rich kids. This is more appropriate for us." I'll never forget how Nathan's shoulders slumped. He took the recorder upstairs without a word. Later, I heard him crying in his room, trying to muffle the sound with his pillow. That's when I checked our account and saw the gambling withdrawals. When I confronted Tom, he exploded. At least I didn't waste money on some stupid instrument. I took Nathan to school the next day, and he was different. The spark in his eyes was gone. He stopped talking about music. The sheet music disappeared. From his walls, he'd flinch whenever his dad entered the room. 2 months later, Nathan's music teacher called me. She'd heard him humming while doing homework and realized he had perfect pitch. A rare gift that made learning instruments much easier. She offered to give him free violin lessons if we could get him one. When I told her what happened, she was horrified. That night, I waited until Tom was asleep. I packed our bags, took Nathan, and drove to my sister's house. The next day, I filed for divorce and drained our accounts before Tom could gamble anything else away. It took a year of saving my salary and help from Nathan's music teacher, but we finally got him a violin. The day we brought it home, Nathan was scared to open the case. His hands were shaking. What if Dad finds out? He's not in our lives anymore. I said, "This is yours. No one can take it away." Nathan practiced for 6 hours straight that day. Now he's 15, plays first chair in his school orchestra, and has perfect grades. He's already getting calls from music me's. Last week, Tom showed up at one of Nathan's recital, trying to act like a proud father. He walked up afterward, arms open for a hug. Nathan just packed up his violin and walked past him without a word. On the drive home, Nathan was quiet. Finally, he said, "You know what hurt most about that Christmas? Not the violin. It was realizing Dad thought my dreams were stupid." I watched him clutch his violin case closer. Yesterday, Tom called begging for money. He'd lost his house gambling, hung up, and went to Nathan's room. He was practicing a piece by Boch, completely lost in the music. His whole body swayed with each note, eyes closed, finally free. That's when I knew leaving was the best gift I ever gave. I never wanted to see my son Nathan cry. But what my husband did to him that Christmas, it broke something in both of us that I don't think ever fully healed. Nathan was always different. while other 12-year-olds obsessed over video games, gadgets, or whatever was trending on TikTok. My son fell in love with classical music. It started with a YouTube video of a boy his age performing a Mozart concerto. That night, he asked if he could stay up to just listen. I didn't think much of aita till it became his routine by the end of that month. Nathan was airplaying violin with makeshift bows, pretending he was on stage at Carnegie Hall. He printed off sheet music even though he couldn't read it yet, and tried to teach himself by comparing notes to YouTube tutorials. He watched documentaries about Paganini and Itzhak Perlman instead of cartoons. This wasn't a phase. He was enchanted. There was one violin he wanted, a gorgeous deep wood piece he'd seen at the local music store. It cost $800. Not a toy, not a starter kit. A real handcrafted instrument. He asked for it every day for 3 months. At first, I brushed it off, but his dedication was impossible to ignore. He skipped birthday gifts, saved every penny from his tiny allowance, ate less at lunch so he could pocket lunch money, did chores for neighbors, and even tried offering me back rubs. For cash, my husband, Tom, thought it was ridiculous. He'll play it for a week and get bored like he did with soccer or karate, Tom said. It's a waste. But I saw something different. I'm a nurse. I know when something lights a soul on fire. And this was Nathan's flame. So, I picked up extra shifts, doubled up on weekends, skipped coffee and takeout for months. Quietly, I saved every dollar until I had just enough. I bought that violin and hid it in my friend's garage until Christmas. I couldn't wait to see Nathan's face when he opened it. Kept saying things like, "I'm gonna cry when I get it," and I already picked my first song to learn. His joy was infectious, but a week before Christmas, everything changed. Tom came home late one night, reeking of beer and sweat. He'd lost $2,000 gambling on some football games. I didn't even know he was betting again. That night, while rummaging for cash or something to pawn, he found the violin receipt in my purse. Without a word, he drove to my friend's garage and returned the violin to the store. Didn't tell me, didn't tell Nathan, just erased it. I found out the next morning when I went to check on the box. Gone. I confronted Tom, who just shrugged and said he wouldn't have used it anyway. On Christmas morning, Nathan came, down in his best church clothes. His hair was combed, face glowing, eyes darting to the tree like he couldn't contain himself. He went straight to the box with his name on it, unwrapped it with trembling hands, found a $30 plastic recorder inside. He stared at it, then at us. "But I've been good," he whispered. "I did everything right." Tom laughed. "Violins are for rich kids. This is more appropriate for us." I will never forget the way Nathan's shoulders slumped. He didn't cry right away. He just quietly picked up the recorder, turned, and walked to his room. I heard the door shut with a soft click. 10 minutes later, I heard muffled sobs. That sound. That was the moment I knew. That was the sound of his spirit breaking. I went straight to check our account. That's when I saw it. Dozens of ATM withdrawals to a betting site. Thousands gone. I confronted Tom, and he exploded, yelling about wasting money on stupid dreams while I stood there holding the receipt for the violin that was supposed to be under that tree. 2 days later, Nathan's music teacher pulled me aside. I overheard him humming while solving math problems, she said. "He has perfect pitch. That's extremely rare." She offered free lessons if I could somehow get him a violin. That night, I waited for Tom to fall asleep. I packed our bags, woke Nathan up gently, and drove to my sister's place to Towns. Over. I filed for divorce the next day and froze our accounts before Tom could gamble away more of our lives. It took a full year of working doubles, skipping every luxury and accepting help from kind strangers and teachers. But we did it. We got Nathan a violin. The day we brought it home, Nathan was terrified. His hands shook as he reached for the case. "What if Dad finds out?" he whispered. "He won't," I said. "He's not in our lives anymore. This is yours. No one can take it away." Nathan practiced for 6 hours that day. Now he's 15. First chair in his school orchestra, straight A student, and already getting offers from elite music academies. The kid who once sobbed into a pillow now commands stages with the elegance of a pro. Last week, Tom showed up at one of Nathan's recitals, wearing a cheap suit and holding a bouquet, trying to play the proud dad. Nathan didn't say a word. He packed his violin, walked past him like a ghost. On the drive home, he was silent. Then he said, "You know what hurt the most about that Christmas?" I glanced at him through the rearview mirror. "It wasn't the violin," he said. "It was realizing my own dad thought my dreams were stupid." Then he turned, opened his violin case, and gently wiped the strings with a soft cloth the next day. Tom called broke, homeless, begging for money. I blocked the number. That evening, I walked into Nathan's room. He was practicing a piece by Bach, eyes closed, his body swaying gently with the rhythm. Free, peaceful, unstoppable. That's when I knew. Leaving wasn't just the best decision I ever made, was the gift that saved my son's soul. Story to my cousin said, "We only used it for groceries, basic stuff." My mom added, "It's not like you are hurting from money." I checked my statement, $4,280 across 17 transactions. I locked the card, triggered a full review, and requested a reissue with new off. At 3:11 p.m., my sister texted, "Why are we getting declined?" I replied, "Because you were never approved." The family group chat went silent for 3 days. But on day 4, a letter arrived. It was supposed to be a lazy Saturday. I've just gotten back from a morning jog, the kind where your legs ache, but your mind clears. I tossed my phone on the kitchen counter, poured a glass of water, and turned on my Bluetooth speaker to let some lofi beats fill the space. That's when I noticed the red alert banner flashing on my bank app. Unusual activity detected. I frowned and tapped through. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Cluster of transactions I didn't recognize. Target, Whole Foods, Uber Eats, and something called Boho Baby Boutique, all clustered over the last 3 weeks. I scrolled and scrolled and then scrolled some more. 17 transactions totaling $4,280. I froze. The card in question was my secondary account, the one I used for online subscriptions and the occasional backup emergency. A card I hadn't touched in a month. A card that until recently had been in my locked desk drawer until now. I recalled my mom had asked me to help my cousin, Julia, apply for an apartment and mentioned needing proof of a cosigner she's just putting your name down on the form. Mom had insisted, "You don't even need to do anything, it's just to get her through door." Stupid me, thinking it ended there. I locked the card instantly, reported fraud, requested a full account review, and demanded a reissue. With new authentication, then I waited. At 3:11 p.m., my sister texted me, "Why are we getting declined?" I stared at the message for a moment, the audacity hitting like a slap. I typed back slowly, "Because you were never approved." Read. Left on read, then silence. The family group chat, which was usually a chaotic mess of forwarded memes, church updates, and passive-aggressive reminders from my mom, went dead. Not even a happy Sunday from Aunt Lydia. Then, on day 4, it came. A cream-colored envelope, with my name written in my mom's handwriting, the kind she only used for birthday cards and guilt letters. The letter wasn't an apology. It was a justification. "My dear," it began, written in my mother's looping script, "we didn't want to hurt you." Julia was struggling. You know, she's had such a hard year with the breakup and school and everything. We just wanted to help her get. Back on her feet? I stopped reading after the second paragraph. My heart was pounding, but not with confusion, with that old familiar burn of being used. Julia had always been the fragile flower of the family, the girl who just needed more support. She was 26, but somehow still treated like she was 12, when she crashed her second car. My parents paid the deductible. When she maxed out her first credit card, my mom co-signed her a new one and quietly paid it off. When she dropped out of her third community college, my dad blamed a system that just doesn't understand creative spirits. And then there was me. I'd been working since I was 15, flipping burgers after school, running spreadsheets for a local realtor in college, and finally landing a solid IT job in fintech. I never asked for help. I never needed to. At least, that's what they always told me. You're the stable one. You don't need us like Julia does. Turns out stability made me the perfect target. 3 weeks earlier, Mom had called, all sweet tones and motherly concern. Sweetheart, Julia's apartment application is asking for an alternate payer, not even a cosigner, just a placeholder. Could she use your old Chase card for the form? Just for the form. It won't be charged. I should have known better. Now, that placeholder had been used for 17 separate purchases. Uber rides across the city, $300 worth of Amazon packages, some spa in Brentwood, groceries from Alhun. For God's sake, Julia was buying $12 coconut waters and facial oils with my emergency fund. I finally called my mom. She picked up on the second ring like she'd been waiting for it. Oh, good. I hoped you'd call, she said. Can we talk about this like a family? Sure, I said. But first, tell me how my card ended up on Julia's Uber account. Silence. We thought it was linked to an old one. She finally muttered, Julia didn't realize. And honestly, it's not like you're hurting for money. That sentence, it's not like you're hurting for money. Like the fact that I had saved, planned, and lived frugally gave them the right to raid my wallet. Like success made me an open bar. I could hear Julia in the background, whispering something. Then came her voice, loud and defensive. We only used it for groceries. Basic stuff. Then why is there a $190 charge at Violet Flame Crystals? That was one time, she snapped. And it was for my spiritual grounding. I was in a really dark place. I could feel my blood pressure spiking. My hands were trembling. I'm not your sponsor, I said flatly. You used my resources without permission. Don't say that. Mom gasped. We're family. Exactly, I said. So why does this feel like violation of financial trust? That night, I blocked Julia on everything. Locked down my credit, set alerts on all accounts, and I sent my mom a message. You violated my trust. You enabled misuse of funds. I'm done. 2 hours later, my sister Lisa, who had been silent this entire time, finally spoke up in the group chat. Guys, seriously, you drained his card and are calling himself. This is messed up. My dad left the chat. Julia posted a vague Instagram story about unhealthy family patterns. But the best part that was still to come, because 2 days after that call, I received an email from work. Someone had attempted to access my employee login from an unknown IP. In Glendale, an attempt blocked by two-factor authentication, but they tried to reset it using my old security questions. Julia's birthday, my mother's maiden name, the email I used for high school registrations. I filed a police report. That's when things truly exploded. The bank froze all secondary cards. Julia's phone was now a paperweight. Mom called in tears, saying Julia was devastated and probably traumatized by the account lockdown. She had a therapy session scheduled. Mom wailed. Good, I said. Maybe she can use that session to talk about her formal complaint for unauthorized use. You wouldn't dare. Already did. The next day, my HR department got a call from a block number, claiming I was under investigation for workplace misconduct. A cowardly, desperate move. Luckily, my manager knew me well enough to ignore it and flagged it to me directly. I was done playing defense. They pushed me into a corner, so I set fire to the room. It started with a knock on my door at 7:46 a.m. I hadn't even had coffee yet. My hoodie was half-zipped, hair still damp from the shower. I opened the door, expecting maybe a package. Instead, I found Julia, puffy-eyed, in a sagging cardigan and leopard print leggings, gripping a soggy paper Starbucks cup like it owed her. An apology behind her. My mom stood like a general, arms crossed, lips pursed, eyes scanning my hallway like it was some battlefield she needed to reclaim. "We need to talk," Mom said, pushing past me before I could stop her. Julia followed. I didn't move. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't even shut the door. "Let the whole building hear this if they want it. What's left to talk about?" I asked. "You're blowing this out of proportion." Julia sniffled, collapsing onto my couch like a deflated balloon. It was a misunderstanding. 17 misunderstandings totaling over $4,000. "You make that in a week," she shot back, eyes flashing. "You act like you're some victim, but you're just hoarding money while the rest of us struggle." Hoarding. That's what? We're calling saving now. Don't raise your voice. Mom interrupted, tone sharp. This isn't helping. No, it never is. When I start pointing out facts, I walked over to my kitchen counter, grabbed a folder I prepared the night before. I dropped it on the coffee table between them like a mic. That's a printout of every transaction. Dates, times, locations, including the 2 a.m. DoorDash from Julia's apartment, chicken tenders, and matchy ice cream. "I was hungry," she mumbled, "and the $380 for psychic services. That was emotional healing. You emotionally healed yourself with my credit card." "Okay," Mom said, stepping forward like she was negotiating a hostage release. "Let's all just breathe. We came here because Julia has a plan. She's going to pay you." Back. Julia looked up, eyes wide. This was news to her. "What plan?" I asked. I'll get a job," she said. The word sounding like a foreign language. Doing what? Something. I'm still figuring it out. "You're 26, so people take time. You've taken a decade and stolen from me in the process." "Stop saying stolen," Mom snapped. "'Twas unauthorized use, not misuse of funds. You're acting like she robbed a bank. She crossed financial boundaries." Silence. "You're supposed to be the bigger person. Mom said you always were. You're successful. You've got everything together. What would it cost you to show some grace?" "That did it." "You want grace?" I asked. I walked to my kitchen drawer, pulled out a small lockbox, and threw it onto the table. It clanked open. Inside were receipts, photocopies of bank transactions, printouts from my credit monitoring service, and the police report I filed. "This is my grace," I said. "The fact that I haven't pressed formal investigation yet. The fact that I haven't had her arrested." Julia's face turned a shade paler. "You wouldn't try me. That would destroy this family," Mom hissed. "No," I said coldly. "This family was destroyed the moment you all decided I was your ATM instead of your son." Julia stood abruptly. "You're not perfect either," she spat. "You think you're better than all of us because you work in tech and have your little savings and your nice apartment. You've never had to deal with failure. That's where you're wrong." I said I deal with failure every day. Your failure. Mom's failure. This whole family's failure to recognize boundaries. I've just stopped letting it destroy me. They were stunned. "Good. You said you came here to talk," I continued. "So, here's my side of it. I'm pressing forward. I already gave your names to the fraud department. They'll reach out. And yes, Julia, there will likely be a charge on your record. Maybe you'll finally learn that actions have consequences. You're sick, she whispered. No, I'm healed. Mom sat down slowly, as if the weight of what I'd said finally cracked through whatever fantasy she'd been clinging to. I raised you better than this, she said quietly. No, you raised me to be quiet, to provide, to never say no, and I've unlearned every part of that training. Julia stormed out. Mom lingered by the door, her voice cracking. You'll regret this. I already regret letting it go this far. She left. I locked the door behind her, turned off my phone, and sat in the silence of my apartment. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, it feels earned. The next morning, my aunt messaged me privately. I heard what happened. For what it's worth, I would have done the same. That afternoon, HR sent a formal notice that my identity had been flagged in an unauthorized digital attempt and that a restraining order had been initiated against the IP addresses connected to Julia's devices. 3 days later, Julia posted a video on TikTok crying about how toxic money havers were destroying family units. The comments were brutal. The family group chat never revived. I thought I'd break, but I didn't just survive. I rose. The silence after the storm was the loudest thing I'd ever experienced. The group chat stayed dead. My phone didn't buzz with guilt-trip voicemails or dramatic texts, just nothing. At first, I thought it was the calm before some bigger ambush. I expected Mom to rally the troops. Maybe unleash Aunt Cheryl with her weaponized guilt, or have Uncle Don check in under the guise of reconciliation, but no one came. Instead, I got quiet. Real, deep, sacred, quiet. The kind of quiet you don't know you need until it wraps around you like armor. For the first time in years, I didn't feel on call for someone else's drama. I didn't worry about unexpected Venmo requests. Didn't have to check my statements twice. Kai breathed. I worked, I slept, and I started living for myself. That week, I rearranged my apartment, took down the security cameras I'd installed in paranoia after Julia's meltdown. Got a better mattress, bought a vinyl player I'd wanted for months, and listened to old jazz records with a glass of red wine, like a grown-ass adult not on call for damage control. I started journaling again. Every night before bed, I wrote down one sentence that made me feel like I was in control again. One night it was, I do not owe people who bleed me dry. Another night, love without respect is just exploitation in prettier clothes, I wrote. And with each entry, I peeled off another layer of guilt my family had dressed me in. But the real shift came the following Monday. I walked into work and my manager, Rob, pulled me aside. I heard what happened, he said. The attempted breach. Legal's got it handled, but man, you okay? I shrugged, smiling faintly. Surprisingly, yay. He paused, then nodded slowly. Well, just so you know, we've been watching your projects. You've handled the load like a champ. And between you and me, there's a senior analyst role opening next quarter. You should apply. That moment, that was mine. For once, I wasn't the guy cleaning up everyone else's mess. I wasn't the emotional janitor in the family trauma house. I was rising, clean, sharp, and untethered. But of course, nothing stays peaceful for long. That Friday, I got a letter from my mother. Not a text, not a voicemail. A literal handwritten letter complete with smeared ink like she'd cried while writing it. Classic. It was 3 pages long. Page 1 was all about how this family used to be close and money shouldn't divide us. Page 2 pivoted to Julia's mental health. The anxiety, the darkness, how she was fragile and needed support, not punishment. But page 3, that's where it got real. You've always been the strong one, she wrote. The capable one. Julia is lost. You abandoning her like this. Fear it might break her completely. I set the letter down, took a long breath, And then I wrote a reply. Not for her, but for me. Dear Mom, I'm not abandoning Julia. I'm abandoning the system you built. The one where I'm the resource and she's the responsibility. I didn't make her fragile. You did by never requiring her to grow up. I've grown. Now it's her turn. I didn't send it. I didn't need to because a week later something shifted. Lisa, my sister, who'd stayed silent through most of this, invited me out for coffee. We met at a little hole-in-the-wall bakery downtown. When I arrived, she already had a coffee waiting. She looked uncomfortable. Guilty? I'm sorry, she said. For what? For staying quiet, for watching them drain you dry and never speaking up. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. She went on. Julie is spiraling. She can't pay rent. Mom's trying to get her into some therapy program, but they can't afford it. Dad's talking about dipping into retirement savings. And that's my problem, Howell. It's not, she said. And you're right to cut them off. I wanted to tell you I see it now. I see what they did to you. We talked for over an hour about childhood, about how she'd always felt invisible, too, just in different ways. And for the first time, it felt like I had a real sibling, not a parasite. She told me how she remembered the way Dad always dismissed me at dinner. How Mom would only check in with me when bills were due. She admitted she had once overheard Julia bragging to a friend that she could get anything out of me if she cried hard enough. When we stood to leave, she hugged me. You don't owe any of them a single thing, she whispered. And if it ever comes to it, I've got your back. That hug felt more real than anything I'd gotten from my parents in the last 5 years. But the cherry on top that came from Julia herself. 3 weeks after the confrontation, she emailed me. No subject line, no greeting, just one paragraph. I hope you're happy. You ruined my life. I'm being evicted. I can't find a job. Mom cries every day. Dad barely speaks to me. I hope you sleep well knowing you destroyed your family over some stupid credit card. I stared at the email. Then I archived it because, you know what? I did sleep well, better than I had in years. A month passed. 30 full days of no phone calls, no group chats, no sudden emergencies I was expected to find. No random hey, can I borrow just a little messages from relatives who only knew my name when their rent was due? And in that silence, I heard something I hadn't heard in years. My own voice, not the anxious, filtered version I used when walking on eggshells with my family. Not the performance voice I used to sound fine when everything inside me screamed otherwise. No, this was mine. Clear, direct, unapologetic. It was strange how fast life recalibrated when you cut out the noise. My apartment felt bigger. My morning, slower, my thoughts sharper. I started going to the gym again. Not because someone told me I should take care of myself while secretly bleeding me dry emotionally, but because I actually wanted to feel strong. I took a solo weekend trip to the mountains, hiked, slept in, ate pancakes alone in a diner at 9 a.m. and smiled at the silence. I started reading again. Not self-help books, not finance guides, but fiction, the kind that pulls you into someone else's world and lets you breathe different air for a while. I had forgotten how much I missed escaping without having to justify it. And then out of nowhere came the message that shattered the last piece of guilt still clinging to my ribs. It was from Aaron, my cousin's ex. The one everyone conveniently forgot existed after she and my cousin broke up 3 years ago. The one who disappeared from family gatherings without a word. The one Julia had always mocked for being too uptight and too money-obsessed. She messaged me on Instagram. It's just one sentence. I heard what happened. You did the right thing. Thank you, I replied, surprised. Thanks. That means more than you know. She responded almost immediately. I was you for 5 years. I paid his rent, his car, even helped his mom get out of medical debt. When I finally left, they said I was ungrateful and cold. But I've built a life since then, a better one. And you will, too.
Now, was it?
That was it. That was the closure I didn't know I needed. Not from my mother, not from Julia, not even from Lisa. From someone who had stood in the same fire and chosen to walk out. So now when people ask about my family, I just smile politely and say it's complicated because it is. And that's okay. They call it betrayal when you stop playing your assigned role. When you say no and they hear, I don't love you. Because to them, love is obedience. Love is sacrifice. Love is handing over your peace without asking for anything in return. But here's the truth. Love without boundaries is not sustainable. I'm not their emotional safety net anymore. I'm not Julia's credit line. I'm not the family's invisible vault. I'm a whole person, one who now wakes up without that sick twist in my stomach, wondering what obligation I forgot, who I accidentally disappointed by daring to have limits. I've built a new routine. I see Lisa once a week for coffee. We don't talk about Mom. We don't talk about Julia. We talk about books and dogs and the dumb reality show we both secretly love. The rest of the family, they're a ghost town in my mind. Occasionally, I'll see a Facebook post from a second cousin about keeping family, together with a passive-aggressive Bible verse underneath. I scroll right past because I've already kept the one family together that mattered most: me, myself, and the self-respect they tried to bury. Sometimes I wonder if Julia ever really believed she did anything wrong. I used to obsess over that, needing her to understand, needing her to feel guilt. But now I realize understanding is her journey, not mine. I don't need an apology to heal. I don't need her validation to move on. I just need space. And I've carved it out of stone, out of fire, out of years of silence and sacrifice finally burned away. Let them call it betrayal. I call it freedom. I call it peace. I call it mine.